Caleb, you had no right to spy on me!
I didn't spy, Marina. I finally opened my eyes.
The lock on our front door was loose again. I'd been meaning to fix it for weeks, but Marina kept saying it was fine, that I worried too much about security. Standing there at 11:30 on a Tuesday night, testing the lock bolt with my flashlight, I wondered what other security systems in my life were failing. My name's Caleb Rourke, and I'm a building inspector for the city of Millbrook, New York. 39 years old, married 15 years to Marina, and until recently, I thought I had a pretty solid foundation under my feet. Turns out I've been living in a house of cards, and the wind was starting to pick up. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. Marina's Honda pulled into our driveway just as I finished tightening the lock mechanism. The headlights swept across me, and I could see her silhouette behind the wheel, talking on her phone. She ended the call quickly when she saw me. "Hey, babe," she said, climbing out of the car. Her hair was slightly messed up, and she had that glow women get after a good workout, or other activities. "What are you doing out here so late?" "Fixing the lock you said didn't need fixing." I held up my screwdriver. "Where have you been? I tried calling around 9. "Oh, girl time with Alyssa. We lost track of time." She kissed my cheek, and I caught a whiff of cologne that wasn't mine. Sorry I didn't answer. My phone was in my purse. Alyssa Chen had been Marina's friend since college. They grabbed dinner maybe once a month, usually planned days in advance. Marina mentioning a spontaneous hangout with Alyssa was like me spontaneously deciding to read poetry. Technically possible, but wildly out of character. "How's Alyssa doing?" I asked, following Marina inside. Good. Same old stuff. Work drama, dating disasters." Marina was already heading upstairs. I'm exhausted, going to shower and crash. I stayed downstairs, pretending to organize my toolbox while my mind ran through the details. Marina's clothes weren't wrinkled like they'd been sitting in a restaurant booth. Her lipstick was completely gone, not just faded. And that cologne smell, woody, expensive, nothing like what I wore. My phone was sitting on the kitchen counter. I picked it up and scrolled to Alyssa's number. "Hey, Alyssa, Marina left her earrings in your car tonight. Can she grab them tomorrow?" The response came back in less than 2 minutes. "Hi, Caleb. I haven't seen Marina in months. Is everything okay?" I stared at the screen for a full minute, reading those words over and over. The shower was running upstairs. Marina was humming something, sounding happier than she'd been in weeks. I deleted the text thread with Alyssa and went to bed. The next morning, Marina was up early, standing in front of her closet in a black lace bra and matching panties I'd never seen before. She was holding up 2 different blouses, both more revealing than her usual work attire. "Big presentation today?" I asked from the bed. "Just want to look professional." She chose the blue silk one, the one that showed just enough cleavage to be interesting without being obvious. "We have a new manager starting in our department, Owen Vickery. I want to make a good impression." Owen Vickery. I rolled the name around in my mouth like I was tasting wine. Sounds familiar? Marina's hands paused on her blouse buttons for just a fraction of a second. "Really? I don't think you'd know him. He's from Rochester." But I did know that name. Marina had mentioned an Owen from her college days, back when we were first dating. Her first serious boyfriend, the one who'd broken her heart when he chose law school over their relationship. She'd shown me pictures once. Tall, dark hair. The kind of smile that belonged in a toothpaste commercial. "Have a good day, babe," I said, kissing her goodbye. She smelled like the expensive perfume she only wore on special occasions. After Marina left, I called in sick to work. First time in 3 years. Then I looked up Greg Dalton in my phone contacts. Greg was a private investigator who used to work insurance fraud cases. I'd met him when he was investigating a suspicious fire at a construction site I'd inspected. He was thorough, discreet, and had a particular hatred for people who lied for money. Or any other reason. "Caleb Rourke," Greg's gravelly voice answered on the second ring. "Haven't heard from you in a while. What's the problem?" "I need you to follow my wife." There was a pause. "You sure about that? Once I start digging, I find everything. Most people don't really want to know everything." "I want the whole ugly picture, not just the tip." "Fair enough. Standard rate is $300 a day plus expenses. I'll need a recent photo of your wife, her work address, and her daily routine as far as you know it." "How long before you have something?" "If she's cheating, I'll know within a week. If she's just working late and you're being paranoid, I'll know that too." After I hung up with Greg, I sat in my kitchen drinking coffee and thinking about security systems. In construction, we have something called a punch list, a final inspection document that lists all the defects that need to be fixed before a project is considered complete. I was starting to think my marriage needed a punch list of its own. Marina's phone buzzed on the counter. She'd forgotten it in her rush to get to work. The screen lit up with a text message preview, looking forward to working together again. It's been too long. Owen V. I didn't touch the phone. Didn't need to. The message told me everything I needed to know about Marina's new manager. My phone rang. Marina. Caleb, I left my phone at home. Can you bring it to my office? Sure thing. Be there in 20 minutes. You're the best. Love you. Love you too. I hung up and stared at her phone. Another message had come in from Owen V. Can't wait to see you. I grabbed my keys and Marina's phone. Time to deliver more than just a forgotten device. Marina's office building was a converted warehouse in downtown Millbrook, all exposed brick and industrial lighting that was supposed to look trendy but mostly looked cold. I'd been there for company Christmas parties and the occasional lunch date back when Marina still wanted me around her coworkers. The receptionist, a young woman named Brittany with pink streaks in her hair, smiled when she saw me. Hey, Mr. Rourke. Marina said you'd be coming by. She's in a meeting with the new manager, but I can get her phone to her. New manager seems to be making quite an impression, I said, handing over the phone. Marina was excited about working with him. Oh yeah, Mr. Vickery is really nice. He and Marina seem to know each other from way back. They were talking about college and stuff. Brittany's expression shifted slightly, like she just realized she might have said too much. Anyway, I'll make sure she gets this. I thanked Brittany and walked back to my truck, parked across the street where I had a clear view of the building's entrance. At 12:15, Marina emerged with a tall man in an expensive suit. Even from 50 yards away, I recognized Owen Vickery from those old college photos. He'd filled out some, lost a little hair, but he still had that confident stride that had probably charmed Marina 20 years ago. They walked to a black BMW parked in the visitor spaces. Owen opened the passenger door for Marina, his hand lingering on her lower back as she got in. They drove off toward the expensive side of town, where the restaurants had cloth napkins and the wine cost more than my lunch budget for a week. I followed at a distance, my work truck blending in with the lunch traffic. They pulled into Romano's, an Italian place that advertised intimate dining and had booths dark enough for privacy. I parked across the street and called Greg. It's Caleb. I'm watching my wife have lunch with her new boss at Romano's. His name is Owen Vickery, and they definitely knew each other before today. I can be there in 10 minutes with a camera. You want photos? Yeah. And Greg? Dig into this Owen guy. Something tells me his hiring wasn't a coincidence. While I waited for Greg, I did some research on my phone. Owen Vickery had a LinkedIn profile that read like a success story. MBA from Syracuse, management positions at 3 different companies, recently divorced. His ex-wife was named Jennifer, and according to her Facebook page, they were in the middle of a custody battle over their 2 kids. Greg arrived in an unmarked sedan, looking like any other middle-aged guy grabbing lunch. He had a camera with a telephoto lens that could count the freckles on a sparrow from 100 yards. They're sitting pretty close for a business lunch, he observed, snapping photos through the restaurant window. She's touching his hand a lot. I watched my wife of 15 years flirt with her college boyfriend like they were 20 again. Marina was animated in a way I hadn't seen in months, leaning forward, laughing at everything Owen said. When he excused himself to use the restroom, she checked her makeup in her phone camera. How long has this been going on? Greg asked. I don't know. Maybe since he started at her company, maybe longer. Want me to find out? Yeah, I want to know everything. When it started, where they meet, what they're planning, all of it. Greg lowered his camera. Caleb, I've been doing this for 15 years. In my experience, when a wife starts an affair with an old flame who conveniently shows up at her workplace, it's not an accident. This was planned. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. What do you mean? I mean, Owen Vickery probably took that job specifically to reconnect with your wife, which means they've been in contact longer than you think. Owen returned to the table and immediately reached for Marina's hand. She didn't pull away. They sat there holding hands across the table like teenagers, completely oblivious to the world around them. Get me everything, I told Greg. Phone records, hotel receipts, emails, whatever you can find. I want to know what I'm dealing with before I make my next move. What kind of next move are we talking about? I thought about that for a moment, watching Marina kiss Owen goodbye in the restaurant parking lot. Not a quick peck, but a real kiss, the kind that promised more later. The kind that makes sure they both remember this decision for the rest of their lives. Greg dropped me back at my truck, and I drove home to an empty house. Marina wouldn't be back until after 6, which gave me time to start my own investigation. I went through our joint credit card statements, looking for charges I didn't recognize. There were several: expensive restaurants, a hotel in Albany, Victoria's Secret purchases I'd never seen the results of. I opened Marina's laptop, the one she used for personal stuff. She'd always been careless with passwords, using the same one for everything: our wedding date. The irony wasn't lost on me. Her email was a gold mine. Messages going back 3 months, starting with, "Owen Vickery has sent you a message on LinkedIn," and progressing through, "So good to reconnect," to "I can't stop thinking about you," to explicit discussions of hotel room numbers and what they plan to do in them. The timeline was clear. Owen had reached out to Marina on LinkedIn, claiming he was looking for opportunities in the area. She'd mentioned an opening at her company. He'd applied, gotten the job, and moved to Millbrook specifically to be near her. They'd been planning this reunion for months while I was fixing loose locks and wondering why my wife seemed distant. I printed out the most damning emails and started a file folder. If Marina wanted to play games, she was about to learn that I'd been inspecting foundations for 20 years. I knew how to find cracks, and I knew how to bring down structures that weren't built to last. My phone buzzed with a text from Marina. "Working late tonight? Don't wait up." I texted back, "No problem. Love you." Then I called Greg. "I need you to follow them tonight. Marina's working late, which I'm guessing means she's working on something, but it's not spreadsheets. I'll pick them up when they leave the office. You want photos of whatever happens next? Photos, video, audio if you can get it. I want evidence that would hold up in court. Planning on divorce?" I looked around our living room, at the photos of Marina and me on vacation, at the furniture we'd picked out together, at the life we'd built over 15 years. It was a good life, or I'd thought it was. Apparently Marina had other ideas. "I'm planning on making sure that when this is over, everyone knows exactly who Marina and Owen really are." After I hung up, I sat down at the kitchen table and started writing. Not a letter, not a journal entry, but a list. A punch list for my marriage, identifying all the defects that needed to be corrected before I could consider this project complete. 1. Document the affair completely. 2. Secure evidence of Owen's role in getting hired. 3. Freeze joint accounts and change locks. 4. Expose Owen to his ex-wife's custody lawyer. 5. Expose both of them to their employer. 6. Make sure the whole town knows what they did. 7. Walk away with my dignity and my assets intact. I looked at the list for a long time, thinking about each item. This wasn't about getting Marina back. This was about making sure that her decision to betray 15 years of marriage came with consequences she'd never forget. My phone rang. Greg. "You're not going to like this," he said. "Tell me." "They're at the Marriott downtown, room 412. They've been there for 2 hours." I closed my eyes and felt the last bit of hope I'd been carrying around fade a quiet passing. "Get me photos of them leaving. Make sure you can see both their faces clearly." "Already done. Caleb, there's something else. I ran a background check on Owen Vickery. His divorce isn't final yet. Technically, he's still married." That was interesting. A married man having an affair with my wife while fighting for custody of his kids. His ex-wife's lawyer was going to love that information. "Send me everything you have. It's time to start checking items off my punch list." The next morning, Marina was humming in the shower again. She'd come home at midnight with a story about inventory reports and client calls, delivered with the kind of casual confidence that comes from practice. I'd pretended to be asleep, listening to her brush her teeth and slip into bed beside me like nothing had changed. But everything had changed. Greg's photos were sitting in a manila envelope on my workbench in the garage, next to printouts of Marina's emails and Owen's employment application. I'd spent an hour the night before studying Owen's resume, looking for inconsistencies. There were several: gaps in employment that didn't match his LinkedIn profile, references from companies that had gone out of business, an address in Rochester that belonged to a strip mall. Owen Vickery was either incredibly unlucky or incredibly dishonest. Given that he was sleeping with my wife, I was betting on dishonest. Marina came downstairs wearing a red dress I'd bought her for our anniversary 2 years ago. She'd never worn it before, claiming it was too fancy for work. Apparently, adultery called for special occasion attire. "You look nice," I said, not looking up from my coffee. "Thanks. I have that presentation today, remember? The one for the new client?" "Right, with Owen." "Among others." She grabbed her keys and headed for the door. "Don't wait up tonight. We might go for drinks afterward to celebrate." "Celebrate what?" She paused, her hand on the doorknob, landing the client, hopefully. "Good luck." After she left, I called my supervisor and took another sick day. Then I drove to the office building that housed Pinnacle Marketing Solutions, the company where Marina and Owen worked. I wasn't going to see Marina, I was going to see someone much more important. Sandra Green was the Human Resources Director for Pinnacle, a no-nonsense woman in her 50s who'd been with the company for 12 years. I'd met her at Christmas parties, and she'd always struck me as someone who took company policies seriously, especially policies about workplace relationships and conflicts of interest. "Mr. Rourke," Sandra said when her assistant showed me into her office, "this is unexpected. Is everything all right with Marina?" "That's actually what I wanted to discuss with you." I sat down across from her desk and pulled out the manila envelope. "I have reason to believe that Marina is having an inappropriate relationship with Owen Vickery, and that Mr. Vickery may have obtained his position here under false pretenses." Sandra's expression went from friendly to professional in about 2 seconds. "Those are serious allegations. What evidence do you have?" I spread the contents of the envelope across her desk. Photos of Marina and Owen at Romano's, holding hands and kissing, photos of them entering and leaving the Marriott, printouts of their email exchanges with the explicit parts highlighted, Owen's resume with the inconsistencies marked in red. Sandra studied everything carefully, making notes on a legal pad. When she finished, she looked up at me with the expression of someone who'd just found termites in the foundation. "Mr. Rourke, company policy requires that employees disclose any personal relationships that might create a conflict of interest. It also requires that we verify all information provided by job candidates. If what you're showing me is accurate, both Marina and Mr. Vickery have violated multiple policies." "What happens now?" "I'll need to conduct a formal investigation. Both employees will be interviewed separately and will verify Mr. Vickery's employment history independently. Depending on what we find, disciplinary action could range from written warnings to termination." "How long will that take?" "A few days at most. Mr. Rourke, I have to ask, are you planning to file for divorce?" "I'm planning to make sure everyone knows the truth about what happened here." Sandra nodded. "I understand, and I want you to know that Pinnacle takes these matters very seriously. We've built our reputation on integrity and professionalism. Employees who compromise that reputation face consequences." I left Sandra's office feeling like I'd just lit the first fuse on a very large firework. By the time Marina and Owen figured out what was happening, it would be too late to put out the fire. My next stop was the law office of Patricia Hendricks, the attorney representing Jennifer Vickery in her custody battle with Owen. I'd found her name in the court records, which were public information. Her office was in a converted Victorian house near the courthouse, the kind of place that specialized in family law and personal injury cases. Patricia was a small woman with steel gray hair and the kind of handshake that could crack walnuts. She listened to my story without interruption, occasionally making notes on a yellow legal pad. "Mr. Rourke, this information could be very valuable in my client's case. Owen has been arguing that he's a stable, moral influence on his children. Evidence of an extramarital affair while the divorce is pending undermines that argument significantly." "How significantly?" "Significantly enough that my client will likely be awarded primary custody. Judges don't look kindly on parents who prioritize new relationships over their children's stability." She made copies of Greg's photos and Marina's emails, particularly the ones where they'd discussed meeting while Owen was supposed to be with his kids. "There's one more thing," Patricia said as I was leaving. "Owen's been claiming financial hardship to reduce his child support obligations. These hotel receipts and restaurant bills suggest otherwise. My client will be very interested to see how he's actually spending his money." Strike 2 against Owen Vickery. I was starting to enjoy this game. I spent the rest of the day driving around Millbrook, thinking about the next items on my punch list. The town was small enough that gossip traveled fast, especially gossip about affairs and workplace scandals. By the time Sandra finished her investigation and Patricia presented her evidence in court, everyone would know what Marina and Owen had done. But I wasn't content to let other people control the narrative. I wanted to make sure the story was told correctly, with all the relevant details. I wanted Marina and Owen to understand that actions have consequences and that some consequences last forever. My phone buzzed with a text from Marina. "Got the client. Owen and I are celebrating at Murphy's Tavern. Don't wait up." Murphy's Tavern was a dive bar on the wrong side of town, the kind of place where the beer was cheap and the lighting was dim. Not Marina's usual scene, but perfect for a clandestine celebration. I texted back, "Congratulations. Have fun." Then I called my sister Becky, who owned O'Malley's Pub downtown. Becky was 2 years younger than me, twice as smart, and had never liked Marina. She'd been polite about it for 15 years, but I'd always sensed she was waiting for the other shoe to drop. "Cal, what's wrong? You sound weird." "Marina's having an affair." There was a pause. I'm sorry, but I can't say I'm surprised. She's been acting different at family gatherings, like she was somewhere else in her head. I need a favor. Can you put the word out that Marina and her new boss are more than just colleagues? Nothing malicious, just let people draw their own conclusions. Consider it done. You know how fast news travels in this town. By tomorrow morning, half of Millbrook will know Marina's playing house with her college boyfriend. Thanks, Beck. Cal, are you okay? Really? I thought about that question. Was I okay? My marriage was over, my wife was sleeping with another man, and I was systematically destroying both their reputations. But for the first time in months, I felt like I was in control of something. Yeah, I said. I think I'm going to be fine. The call came at 6 in the morning. Marina crying so hard I could barely understand her. Caleb, something terrible has happened. Someone told HR about Owen and me. They're saying we violated company policy. I might lose my job. I sat up in bed, rubbing my eyes like I'd been asleep. Slow down. What exactly did HR say? Sandra called me at home. She wants to see me in her office at 9. Owen too. Someone gave her photos of us together and emails. Personal emails, Caleb. Someone hacked into my account. That's awful, babe. Who would do something like that? Marina was quiet for a moment. I don't know, but Caleb, there's something I need to tell you. Owen and I, we have history. From college. When he got hired at Pinnacle, we started talking, and old feelings came back. I never meant for it to go this far. How far did it go? Another pause. Longer this time. We've been seeing each other. I'm sorry. I know I should have told you, but I didn't know how. I let the silence stretch out, giving her time to dig the hole deeper. Are you in love with him? I don't know. Maybe. I'm so confused right now. Well, you better figure it out fast. If you're going to lose your job over this guy, you need to decide if he's worth it. He says he loves me. He says he took the job at Pinnacle to be near me. That's romantic. What about his wife? They're getting divorced. It's been over for months. I almost laughed. Marina had no idea that Owen's custody hearing was scheduled for next week, or that his ex-wife's lawyer now had evidence of his affair. She thought she was the heroine of a romance novel when she was actually the other woman in a very ugly divorce. I have to go, Marina said. I need to figure out what I'm going to tell Sandra. Good luck. After she hung up, I made coffee and called Greg. Phase 1 is complete, I told him. Marina just confessed to the affair and HR is investigating. What's the status on Owen's custody case? His lawyer tried to get a continuance, but the judge denied it. Hearing is set for Friday. Patricia Hendricks is ready with your evidence, and she says Owen's ex-wife is furious. Apparently, Owen's been telling his kids that mommy is the reason they can't live together while he's been shacking up with your wife. Good. What about his employment background? Even better, I contacted his previous employers directly. 2 of the companies he listed don't exist anymore, and the third one has no record of him ever working there. His references are fake, and his college transcripts have been altered. Owen Vickery is a fraud in more ways than one. I felt a grim satisfaction. Owen had built his new life on lies, and now those lies were catching up with him. When will Pinnacle find out? Sandra Green is thorough. I'd guess by end of business today.
The rest of the morning passed slowly. I went to work, inspected a foundation that was solid as bedrock, and tried not to think about the foundations crumbling in my personal life. At noon, I got a text from Marina. It's bad. Really bad. Can we talk tonight? I texted back, of course. Whatever you need. At 3 o'clock, Becky called. Holy shit, Cal. Your wife and her boyfriend are the talk of the town. I've had 6 people ask me about it in the last hour. Word is they're both getting fired. That was fast. Small town, big scandal. People are saying Owen lied on his resume, that he's still married, that he moved here just to steal your wife. True? All of it. Jesus. Marina always seemed smarter than that. Apparently not. That evening, Marina came home looking like she'd been hit by a truck. Her eyes were red from crying, her hair was disheveled, and she moved like someone who'd just received devastating news, which I suppose she had. They fired us both, she said, collapsing onto the couch. Effective immediately. Sandra said we violated multiple company policies and that Owen lied on his application. They're considering legal action for fraud. I'm sorry, Marina. That's terrible. She looked up at me with something like hope in her eyes. Caleb, I know I messed up. I know I hurt you. But maybe this is a sign that Owen and I weren't meant to be. Maybe we can work through this. I sat down beside her, taking her hand. It felt strange, comforting the woman who'd been betraying me for months. What does Owen say about all this?
He's not handling it well. He's talking about leaving town, starting over somewhere else. He wants me to come with him. And what do you want? Marina was quiet for a long time. I want to not have made such a mess of everything. I want to go back to before I reconnected with Owen and make different choices. But you can't. No, I can't. I squeezed her hand. Marina, there's something you should know. Owen's custody hearing is Friday. His ex-wife's lawyer has photos of you two together. She's going to use them to argue that Owen's an unfit father. Marina went pale. How do you know that? Because I'm the one who gave her the photos. The look on Marina's face was worth every penny I'd paid Greg Dalton. Shock, betrayal, disbelief, and finally, understanding. She pulled her hand away from mine like I'd burned her. You did this. You destroyed our jobs. You ruined Owen's custody case. You've been watching us, following us. I've been protecting myself from a wife who was planning to leave me for another man. I never said I was leaving you. Your emails to Owen suggest otherwise, especially the one where you discussed how to divide our assets and whether I'd fight the divorce. Marina stood up, pacing the living room like a caged animal. You read my emails, you invaded my privacy. You invaded our marriage. I just documented it. This isn't over, Caleb. Owen and I love each other. We'll figure this out. Good luck with that. By the way, Owen's not just getting divorced. He's still married. Has been this whole time. You've been having an affair with a married man who lied to get a job so he could seduce you. Marina stopped pacing. That's not true. Check the court records. They're public information. She grabbed her purse and headed for the door. I'm going to Owen's. We need to figure out our next move. Marina, wait. She turned back, and for a moment I saw the woman I'd married 20 years ago. Young, hopeful, trusting. Before life got complicated and people started making choices they couldn't take back. This didn't have to happen this way, I said. If you'd been honest with me, if you'd asked for a divorce instead of sneaking around, things could have been different. Would you have given me a divorce? I thought about that. Probably not without a fight, but I would have respected you for being honest about it. And now? Now I'm going to make sure everyone knows exactly who you really are. Marina left without another word. I watched her drive away, wondering if I'd see her again before this was all over. Probably not. Owen would convince her to run, to start fresh somewhere else where nobody knew their story. They'd leave behind their reputations, their families, their responsibilities, and try to build something new on the wreckage of what they'd destroyed. But they'd never escape what they'd done. In a small town like Millbrook, some stories follow you forever. Friday morning brought news that Owen Vickery had lost his custody case spectacularly. According to Becky, who'd heard it from Patricia Hendricks' secretary at the coffee shop, the judge had awarded Jennifer Vickery full custody and increased Owen's child support obligations. The photos of Owen with Marina, combined with evidence of his lies about his employment and finances, had painted him as an unreliable father who prioritized his affair over his children's welfare. Owen's response was predictable. By Friday afternoon, he and Marina had loaded his BMW with suitcases and were planning to leave town. They'd rented a U-Haul trailer for the rest of their belongings, parking it in front of Owen's apartment complex like a billboard advertising their defeat. I might have let them go quietly, but Marina made one last mistake. She came to the house while I was at work and tried to take things that weren't hers, jewelry I'd bought her, electronics we'd purchased together, even some of my tools from the garage. My neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, called to let me know someone was loading boxes into a U-Haul from my driveway. When I got home, Marina was gone, but the evidence of her visit was clear. Drawers left open, closets ransacked, gaps on shelves where photos and decorations used to sit. She'd taken her clothes and personal items, which was fair, but she'd also taken the good silverware, my grandfather's watch, and about $300 in cash I'd kept in my desk drawer. That crossed a line. I called the police and filed a theft report, providing a detailed list of missing items and their approximate values. Officer Janet Mills, who'd gone to high school with Marina, took the report with professional detachment, but I could see the disappointment in her eyes. We'll investigate, Mr. Rourke, but if they've left town, recovery might be difficult. I understand. I just want it documented that she took things that weren't hers. The police report was the final piece of evidence I needed for my ultimate plan. Marina and Owen thought they were escaping the consequences of their actions, but they were wrong. In about 6 hours, the whole town was going to know exactly what they'd done. Saturday was Millbrook's annual Founders' Day parade, a small-town tradition that drew crowds from all over the county. Local businesses sponsored floats, the high school marching band performed, and politicians gave speeches from a reviewing stand in the town square. It was the kind of event where everyone who mattered in Millbrook would be present, including most of Marina's former coworkers and Owen's ex-wife with their children. I'd volunteered to help with the construction of the reviewing stand, which gave me access to the sound system and microphone. The parade organizers were grateful for the help, especially since I donated my time and materials free of charge. They had no idea I had an ulterior motive. The parade started at 10 in the morning with the usual small-town pageantry. Fire trucks, scout troops, vintage cars, and local business floats made their way down Main Street while families lined the sidewalks with folding chairs and coolers. I waited until the parade was nearly over and most of the crowd had gathered in the town square for the closing ceremony. Mayor Davidson was at the podium, thanking the volunteers and sponsors when I walked up to the reviewing stand. He saw me coming and smiled, assuming I was there to help with the sound equipment. "Ladies and gentlemen," I said, taking the microphone from the surprised mayor, "I'd like to take a moment to talk about integrity and consequences." The crowd turned their attention to me, probably expecting some kind of civic-minded speech about community values. They weren't entirely wrong. My name is Caleb Rourke, and until recently, I was married to Marina Rourke, who worked at Pinnacle Marketing Solutions. Some of you know Marina, and some of you have met Owen Vickery, who was briefly employed at the same company. I could see people in the crowd starting to pay closer attention. This wasn't the usual Founders Day speech. I'm here today to tell you a story about two people who thought they could lie and cheat and manipulate their way to happiness, and about the consequences they're facing as a result. Mayor Davidson was trying to get my attention, gesturing for me to step away from the microphone, but I ignored him. The crowd was completely focused now, sensing drama. 3 months ago, Owen Vickery contacted my wife through LinkedIn, claiming he was looking for job opportunities in our area. What he was really looking for was a way to reconnect with his college girlfriend and convince her to have an affair with him while he was still married to his first wife. A murmur went through the crowd. I could see Jennifer Vickery near the front, holding her 2 children's hands and listening intently. Owen lied on his job application, falsified his references, and got himself hired at Pinnacle specifically so he could seduce my wife. Marina, meanwhile, helped him get the job and then began an affair with him, lying to me for months about where she was spending her evenings. The murmur was getting louder. People were pulling out their phones, some to record video, others to text their friends who weren't at the parade. When their affair was discovered, both Marina and Owen were fired from Pinnacle for violating company policy and for Owen's fraudulent application. Owen also lost custody of his children when his ex-wife's lawyer presented evidence of his affair to the family court judge. I looked directly at Jennifer Vickery, who nodded at me with something like gratitude. Yesterday, Marina came to our house and stole several $1,000s worth of property, including items that belonged to my family. She and Owen loaded their belongings into a U-Haul trailer and left town rather than face the consequences of their actions. Mayor Davidson was gesturing frantically now, but the crowd was hanging on every word. This was better entertainment than any parade float. I'm telling you this story because I want everyone to understand something important. Actions have consequences. When you lie to get a job, you get fired. When you cheat on your spouse, you lose your marriage. When you put an affair ahead of your children, you lose custody. When you steal from people, you get reported to the police. I paused, looking out at the crowd of neighbors, co-workers, and friends who'd known Marina and me for years. Marina and Owen thought they could start over somewhere else, that they could escape the reputation they'd earned here. Maybe they can. But they'll never escape what they did, and they'll never escape knowing that everyone they left behind knows exactly who they really are. I handed the microphone back to Mayor Davidson and walked off the reviewing stand. The crowd was buzzing with conversation, people turning to their neighbors to discuss what they'd just heard. Some looked shocked, others satisfied. A few seemed uncomfortable with the public nature of my revelation. I didn't care. Marina and Owen had made their choices publicly, flaunting their affair at restaurants and hotels around town. They deserved to have their consequences delivered just as publicly. As I walked back to my truck, Jennifer Vickery approached me. "Mr. Rourke, I wanted to thank you. What you did, providing evidence for my custody case, it made all the difference for my children. Owen made his own choices. I just documented them. Still, I'm grateful, and I'm sorry about your marriage. Don't be. I'm better off knowing the truth." That afternoon, my phone started ringing. Friends, family members, co-workers, all wanting to know more details about what they'd heard at the parade. I answered a few calls, but mostly I let it go to voicemail. The story would spread on its own now, growing and evolving as stories do in small towns. By evening, Becky called with an update. "Cal, you're not going to believe this. Marina called the bar an hour ago, crying and screaming about what you did at the parade. Apparently, Owen is furious. He's blaming her for not keeping the affair secret, saying it's her fault they got caught." Trouble in paradise? Sounds like it. She wanted me to give you a message, but I told her to call you herself if she had something to say. What was the message? That you're a vindictive bastard who ruined her life. I thought about that. Maybe I was vindictive. Maybe I had ruined her life. But Marina had ruined mine first, and she'd done it with lies and deception while I'd done it with nothing but the truth. Beck, do you think I went too far? Hell no. Marina made her bed, now she gets to lie in it. With Owen, in some crappy apartment in whatever city they end up in, wondering if people there will eventually find out what they did here. Sunday morning was quiet. I made coffee, read the newspaper, and enjoyed the silence of a house that was finally free of secrets and lies. Around noon, Greg Dalton called. Thought you'd want to know. Owen and Marina made it as far as Buffalo before their U-Haul broke down. According to my contact at the towing company, they got into a screaming match on the side of the highway about whose fault it was. Marina ended up taking a Greyhound bus to her sister's place in Ohio. Owen continued on to wherever he was going, alone. So it's over? For them? Yeah, I'd say so. Turns out running away together is a lot less romantic when you're broke, unemployed, and blaming each other for how you got that way. After I hung up with Greg, I walked through the house, taking inventory of what was left. Marina had taken most of the photos of us together, but she'd left behind the wedding album. I flipped through it, looking at pictures of two young people who'd thought they were starting a life together. They looked happy, hopeful, completely unaware of how it would all end. I closed the album and put it in a box with the rest of Marina's belongings that she'd left behind. Someday, maybe, she'd want these memories back, or maybe she wouldn't. Either way, they weren't mine to keep anymore. The house felt different now, emptier, but also cleaner somehow, like a building that had been stripped down to its foundation so it could be rebuilt properly. I had work to do, repairs to make, a life to reconstruct, but for the first time in months, I felt like I was building on solid ground. Marina had wanted a fresh start with Owen, and in a way, she'd gotten one, just not the kind she'd been hoping for. They were both starting over now, in separate cities, with separate lives, carrying the weight of what they'd done to get there. As for me, I was starting over too. But I was doing it honestly, with nothing to hide and nothing to be ashamed of. I'd told the truth, faced the consequences, and come out the other side with my integrity intact. In the construction business, we have a saying, you're only as good as your foundation. Marina and Owen had built their relationship on lies, deception, and betrayal. When the pressure came, it collapsed completely. I was building something new now, something that would last, and this time, I was going to make sure the foundation was solid.